All right, it's time to welcome in our first guest of the day, Ryan from Bear Down Podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. Thank you so much for having me. How are you guys?
Yeah, doing really well. We're a bit bleary-eyed this morning after a long day yesterday, but thank you so much for getting up so early for us.
You know what? Honestly, this is easy for me. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. I've got a an Australian football club that I watch religiously, and so I'm up. I'm excited. I'm ready to talk NFL. Let's go, boys.
Yeah, so just quickly, you have an Aussie rules team. Who is it?
So it's Port Adelaide. Is when COVID first kind of swept over and we saw that things were going to get canceled. A good friend of mine who happens to be a Vikings fan said, "Hey, let's find a team and support a team together." And we just kind of started learning the rules a little bit, and it's one of those things you get hooked really fast. So whenever I see a fan from the UK, I just identify with you guys so much. Waking up at crazy hours to watch games, the draft and all of those other things, man. I just like seriously, my heart goes out to you guys big time.
It's a commitment. It's a commitment, but I enjoy it. I absolutely love it. Just to kick us off, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Ryan?
So I grew up in Chicagoland. Started as a Bears fan in 2001. It was a very magical season. The Bears went 13-3. It was one of those times where the ball just kind of seemed to bounce their way every way imaginable. They just got some unbelievable plays, and it's just once you get that first wonderful season under your belt, it kind of hooks you. And I've been writing and working for the Bear Down Report for a little over a year now, and we've got the podcast rolling, which is not even a full season yet. But we've been really thrilled, and thankfully we've been able to connect with you guys. Having several members of our crew that are international, and some in the UK, some in Australia, and so I just absolutely love the passion of UK fans and fans from across the world for the love of this wonderful game.
I think the thing about the UK fans is you have to be a bit fanatical to, as you say, do all the things that we do to watch the games. So we're going to come with that commitment as kind of part and parcel, I think. Moving on to the Bears generally kind of last year and the roster holes that you came into the draft with, how did you see those?
So it's really interesting, Matt. If you would have asked me, I would say like even maybe 3 days ago, how I felt about the Chicago Bears, I would say the fandom is kind of thinking about walking away from this team beyond frustrated, just no trust in the management in any way, shape, or form. Just they were kind of saying, "Hey, we made it to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years." Well, you didn't really make it to the playoffs at 8-8. That just the NFL gave an extra playoff game, and you just happen to be the guys that just made it in. Thank you,
Yeah,
Arizona Cardinals. But the thing is, hey, here we are in a significantly different situation. Looking at this team, we thought quarterback obviously was going to be a huge need. Andy Dalton signing was not one that any of us were looking around going, yes, I'm excited about Andy Dalton. The contract even looks, I think, worse now. The fact that they were able to get Justin Fields, considering that the Bears cap situation is absolutely abysmal. I mean, it's bad all across the board. But I think Bears fans this morning are waking up just going, is this still a dream? Is this possible that we were able to draft two guys that Bears fans said, man, if we could get Justin Fields, it would be a dream. But if we got Tevin Jenkins, we would be ecstatic. And somehow, some way, both of these guys are going to be wearing Chicago Bears uniforms. Man, I'm in disbelief. I think there's a general consensus amongst the fans right now that is just like, do we have to apologize to Ryan Pace, the GM, for all of the awful things that we've said about him? And I don't know, man. Maybe we do.
maybe. I mean, I kind of hope you do, because I'm not his biggest fan. It's a worrying level of competence he's showing in the draft, considering the kind of previous history that we've been used to with him. So I do wonder
100%.
whether this is enough to save his job, whether it's going to turn you guys from, I would say, a kind of 50-50 sort of team. You're going to go 8-8, 9-8, sort of thing as where I saw you anyway. Is this going to turn you into a team that can properly contend? Maybe not this year, but if you show enough promise that maybe next year you can get there. I don't know whether it saves his job. If you went 9-8 with promise, would you keep him on?
I think that, you know, Matt, that's such an excellent point. It's just a lot of Bear fans have said we believe that this buys Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy at least 2 more seasons. You know, because the chance that you're going to put Justin Fields out game 1 is not as high. I mean, I think the dude is incredibly smart. One of the things that I love about his game is that he improves week to week to week, and I think that he probably could do it. But it seems like the Bears want to start Andy Dalton day 1, which I think, again, it buys these guys a little bit of time in order to keep their jobs and say, hey, look, we've brought in the guy that everybody wanted, that, you know, the player that every Bears fan has been clamoring for, and we want to develop him. And so I think that Bears brass, like, they don't like to make these big sweeping front office changes, and this just kind of plays to their hand. So, you know, a good friend of mine said Ryan Pace is crazy like a fox, and you know, and I believe that there is something to that, where he realized this is the move we have to make in order to keep our jobs, and it seems like that's what's going to happen.
Looks like it's worked. Ryan, you have a few questions?
Morning, Ryan. Thanks
Good
for coming
morning,
on.
or good afternoon, right, for you guys.
Yeah, afternoon here. My question to you is, in recent times, well, in the past few days, we've seen some interesting interactions and potential stories coming out regarding the likes of Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. Do you feel that there's a shift coming in the NFC North? The tide could be turning, because we saw the Vikings take Kellen Mond, despite Kirk Cousins being on a huge contract. That raises some doubts about his future there, and what's going on with Rodgers' potential retirement. This could be a huge shake-up for the NFC North in general, couldn't it?
Ryan, man, you've just made some excellent points. The first thing is, since you just brought it up, is Kellen Mond. That's a name that I had kind of circled to say, if the Bears draft Tevin excuse me, guys, Tevin Jenkins in the first round, I would be excited to see Kellen Mond in that third round, in the start of the third round, have the Bears bring him in at quarterback, you know, a developmental guy, have him learn under Andy Dalton. Obviously, things have turned around. And so through my Viking fan friends, I've said, hey, I think this is a really good signing. I understand that Kirk Cousins has played well at times, but I don't understand the absolute love for him. I think his contract is really prohibiting the Vikings, though Spielman is an amazing GM and knows how to get, you know, the most draft capital and most value that's out there. I kind of have the Vikings as a team that I think is going to be kind of vying for that number 1 or number 2 spot. But Ryan, man, I think you saw it on my face, man. As soon as you said Aaron Rodgers, it's difficult, because if I say anything negative about him, it's people think, oh, here's a Bears fan talking negatively about it. But I mean, let's be real about this for a second. You have 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back in over 30 years, and you have 2 Super Bowls to show for it. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers is next level. And so this organization has done him absolutely no favors. And what do you do then? You draft a cornerback in round 1 when your disgruntled MVP has basically said, hey, I want out of this organization. I don't know. I don't know, Ryan. I mean, if it happens, if he leaves, I think it drastically changes the look of the Packers. Sure, they've got Devontae Adams, and you know they've got a strong running game, but aside from that, I don't think that they're a really great team without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that guy he's one of the best to ever play the game, and without him, that changes the entire landscape of the NFC North big time.
Yeah.
No, totally.
Sorry.
Please. I totally agree, because I also look at the scenario where the players you choose in the draft and the level of protection can irk a quarterback. Look at Russell Wilson. He came out and said, look, if you don't start protecting me, if you let me eat sacks, I want out, which then triggered all these potential Bears rumors. Like I said, it's going to be potentially an ugly relationship going forward. You need to rectify this somehow, don't you?
100%. The only thing I'll also say though to that, Ryan, is when we look at what happened with LaFleur coming in, and we all thought, oh, things aren't going well. There were reports that they were fighting and then they weren't getting along, and then they had 2 trips to the NFC Championship. So obviously, he may be a guy that can put aside his personal feelings on some things to make it happen, and I think that's probably giving Packers fans a lot of hope. But for Lions, Vikings, and Bears fans, we're just, I think it just would be nice to see the division shaken up a little bit and to see somebody else kind of in front a little bit. I mean, all credit to them. They have won fair and square, and it's been hard to watch them from that position. But man, I think it would be really fun for the NFC North to see things take a different direction.
Yeah, I agree. The thing about Aaron Rodgers, I know we've kind of spent a lot of time on him and not on the Bears perhaps, but just one more thing is, throughout the
Please.
season, there was a noticeable change in his demeanor. He, in previous years, was a frustrated figure on the sideline. He wore his heart on his sleeve. And then this year, he looked like he was smoking pot all the time. He's like, it's chill, dude. I'm relaxed. I'm just enjoying myself. And then coming out here saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to retire. It's totally at odds with the kind of guy he portrayed throughout the season. I find the difference between the guy he was on the field this year and this off season really striking.
Yeah, I don't know if he's crossing over to Illinois because in Illinois, it's marijuana is legal now. So I don't know. It's possible, Matt, that's what's happening in the first place. No, I think it was a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. Hey, you guys didn't give me what I asked for, but I'm still going to be the MVP. Again, I'm a Bears fan, but I can respect someone who has an incredible game, and he has an incredible game. If he was wearing a 12 jersey that was in orange and blue, I know that I would be cheering for him very loudly. And if he was wearing Honolulu blue, Matt, I'm sure you'd be cheering for him as well.
Oh, the Facebook groups of people going, should we trade for him? It's like, no, don't even say the question.
But you're thinking, no, nobody's going to trade in division. And then you look at what happened with Dallas in round 1 with the Eagle. Like, wait, what? How does this happen in division?
Yeah, it's weird. But I guess to screw over another division rival together is kind of funny, right?
Right,
I love
absolutely.
that. Looking ahead to the draft, obviously you've been super solid so far. The trade up didn't cost too much. Just next year's first, I think maybe a late round pick elsewhere. I don't think it was too much. So that must be really encouraging. Is there anyone else that you're perhaps targeting? Any position groups that you'd like to see filled in day 3?
It's really hard, Matt, because you're thinking, hey, in an ideal world, we get either an offensive tackle or a quarterback, and somehow the Bears ended up with both who I believe, I ranked in the first round, and actually I put Justin Fields as quarterback number 2 ahead of Zach Wilson, and so I'm elated at this point. Cornerback is a huge need with Kyle Fuller exiting to Denver. That is a big need. Trufant is a good player, but not at the caliber in any way, shape, or form of Kyle Fuller. Bears fans are pretty upset about that now. The Andy Dalton contract looks terrible. The fact that you were able to get him and you maybe could have kept Kyle Fuller and not signed Andy Dalton. Then Nick Foles is helping Justin Fields along. That would have made a whole lot more sense. So while we're all praising Ryan Pace this morning, it's not the same as like, hey, he's done a perfect job here. I would love to see the Bears pick up another wide receiver, just someone, anyone late round, something along those lines. A linebacker, a parent to Danny Trevathan, who is starting to age out quite a bit. Anyone next to Roquan Smith, that's going to be a fun linebacker duo. But at this point of the game, guys, it's really hard to say that at this point, everything else feels like an extra. Whatever the Bears get, I'm already so happy with the first 2 picks.
Any more questions, Ryan?
Yeah, I've got a question. Like you say, you mentioned wide receiver. You've got Allen Robinson, but there seems to be some sort of to and fro-in. Like say, signed his tag, but will he be there next year? And then I found it quite bizarre that Anthony Miller was on the trade block. You essentially said, someone please come and take him off our hands. So going into next year, like say, wide receiver potentially be an issue because there's no guarantee that either of those guys will be there.
I think the Allen Robinson thing has a little bit more to do with the Bears' bad cap situation, and we all know that in 2022 that situation is going to look drastically different. So I think the hope right now is for Bears fans is that Allen Robinson looks at Justin Fields the way that we're looking at Justin Fields. And, he's clearly going to get him the ball. I think Allen Robinson is much more motivated to be here now instead of having Andy Dalton as his QB1, to have Justin Fields as QB1. I think he wants to be here. I think he wants to stay here. Bears fans definitely want him to stay here. Bears fans are really excited about Darnell Mooney. He doesn't drop balls the way that Anthony Miller does. He doesn't punch players with helmets on the way that Anthony Miller does and Javon Wims. It's one of those. It's like literally your coaches say, "Hey, that guy at the helmet on, don't punch him," and they still do it. And it's so we're kind of hey, thank you so much for your time, but the Anthony Miller experiment, I think he would be best served by getting a new fresh opportunity somewhere else.
That's totally fair.
Yeah,
that was one of the more bizarre moments of last season. Just it looked like a really vicious punch, and yet it really didn't seem to do more than like push his helmet a little bit, and he lost it. But
you don't understand. We're all like we don't understand it. It happened twice in one season from two different players, and it just, no one wants to be that. No one wants to have that guy on their team, and it's been difficult to cheer for him when he talks a big game, but again, he's been plagued by the drops, and to have Darnell Mooney, a 5th round draft pick out of Tulane, that has just been stellar, and it got better and better as the season went on. Bears fans are really excited about him. If you could somehow find a big body receiver on the opposite of Allen Robinson, and then you put Darnell Mooney in the slot, man, with David Montgomery, Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, and Justin Fields, I can't believe I'm going to say this to you guys, but the Bears might have a good offense.
It might happen. It might happen.
Crazier things have happened.
I don't know, man. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, just to kind of finish up on Matt Nagy, perhaps. We were saying before about keeping his job or not keeping his job, but in terms of the offense that he runs, the first season with Trubisky was the second season, but one of those two was stellar. He wasn't showing too much in the same way that perhaps Goff didn't show too much to look very good in the first few years of the Rams. What do you think was the difference between the first few years of Trubisky and the last few years of Trubisky? Was it down to scheme and coach, do you think?
Matt, that is such a brilliant question, and a question I think every Bears fan is asking, because you seemingly got so much out of Mitch Trubisky in 2018, and then not so much in 2019 and 2020. It would appear that in 2018, Matt Nagy took a lot of fun in calling unique plays, play designs, and playing to the strengths of his players as he's getting to know them. And then in 2019 and 2020 made a curious decision, which was, I'm going to start to essentially take that stuff away and make you try to fit into my system. And it's been a big knock amongst Bears fans on Matt Nagy. Just we're not really thrilled with the way in which that guy has not necessarily utilized the talents. Is one of the reasons why he got play calling duties taken away from him late on in the season in 2020. Bill Lazor, coming in from Cincinnati, doing an excellent job using the run game, using that play action, which is Mitch's strengths. And we look at 2019, and at one point, the Bears were playing the Saints, and Mitch Trubisky drop back 50 times. If you have a struggling quarterback, you don't make him do that. And it's really, really quite simple. So it's fascinating to think in 2018, Matt Nagy could do no wrong. And in 2020, we were all just calling for him to be fired. The BU mentality, which he puts all over the place, is something that we really admired at first, but he just seems reluctant to change, to adapt to the strength of the players that he has.
That's exactly the same thing I've seen in Sean McVay. That, is this guy who's an absolute offensive genius, and look how good his teams look, and then he decides that he knows best, and suddenly the team doesn't look so good, and it looks like the coach is almost at loggerheads with maybe the GM in terms of the roster building, because if you want to take it your own way, you've got to get players which are going to fit your system, and either one's falling down or the other's falling down, but you're a team and should be working together.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about Shanahan in San Francisco is the exact opposite. That guy finds a way to win with bottom of the barrel quarterbacks. They seem like they're in games at all times, and their offense is still cooking, you know, with CJ Beathard and, you know, whoever else it might be throwing the football that week, you know, just finding a way to utilize his players' strengths. And it's frustrating when it says, no, my system is what you should do. I think good coaching is finding a way to kind of adapt to both that system that you want to run and the strengths of the players that you have in front of you.
Any final questions, Ryan?
Yeah, one final one. If I'm going to put you on the spot here, if you had to look at what you've seen from day 1 to what's going on, I'm not going to ask you for record, but how do you think the NFC North will finish position-wise?
Man, Ryan, it's such a great question. You know,
Do you think enough
originally
has changed, but
yeah,
to change the records last year?
yes, very, very much so. So again, you know, it's so funny is I actually had a friend on who covers the Lions, and we talked a little bit about it, and to, you know, say, hey, where do you see the finish? You know, and initially I said Packers on top, then the Vikings, then the Bears, then the Lions. But man, I don't know. This you know, things have changed dramatically over the last couple of weeks here, and especially over this weekend with the Aaron Rodgers news. You know, the Packers just not seemingly drafting really, really well, and obviously with the excitement over in Chicagoland. So, you know, gut reaction as a fan, sure, I'm going to say it's, you know, it's a 3-way race between the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers, but realistically, I'm sure that's probably not going to happen. You know, there's going to be a lot of growing pains. And in all honesty, you know, for Lions fans, getting Sewell in the first round, just I truly applaud. You know, I know that isn't the sexy pick, so to speak, but I mean, that is a generational talent at tackle. And just thinking, you know, Jared Goff, who's not the most mobile quarterback in the world, like I'm excited to see what he does for you guys, truly.
Yeah, I think we've given him the best chance to succeed there. Definitely, absolutely. And thank you so much for giving us your time. We're really appreciative of it. Is there anything you'd like to plug or anything before you go?
Well, first and foremost, Matt and Ryan, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. I really, truly appreciate it. I know this is a big undertaking that you guys have done, you know, inviting all these people on, and man, just to keep it rocking and rolling. I have the utmost respect for all the UK fans of the NFL. Truly, guys, anytime you happen to make it to the Midwest, if you're in the Chicagoland area, I will happily buy you guys a beer, and we'll have a bit of food, and we'll talk about the game. So if you don't mind, yeah, at some point you can follow me on Twitter at BDRDengel, DENGEL. Check out beardownreport.com for anything Chicago Bears. And guys, truly, thank you so very much for this morning. I really, truly appreciate the opportunity.
It's great. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Talking,
yeah. Take care, guys.
You too.
Be well.
Take care. Bye.